Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 7:17 a.m. Friday, August 16th. Happy Friday to everybody. Hope you're having a great start to your weekend. We've got a lot today in terms of DFS. We have a 3-game NFL slate. That's back. There's a video up. We have a 5-game WNBA slate. There will be a video up later today. And we've got a full MLB slate with loads of top-end pitching. It's going to be fun to break down. Let's get into it. Before we do, welcome to the channel if you're new here. During the weekends, we see a spike in viewership because, everybody's got more free time. It's Friday. Nobody's doing anything at work. You're probably watching this right now from your desk. So how's it going? Hope your lunch break or hope your time right now. You're not going to get caught and fired on my part. But if you do, who cares? Go do something better. With that all said, we do have a 15-game slate today. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, all of this. Lots of content coming out today. Lots of content coming out this entire week into next week. I do have an NFL course, pretty much in-depth. It's all linked down below on what's in it. There's a video. There's a guide that says what's in it. Pretty much how to start making money and just taking it more seriously, DFS, instead of hitting the deposit button every single day. And then also linked down below, I do have a Patreon where I will have an article and or podcast for the MLB later today. Do that daily. On the weekends, it's going to slowly start to become less daily when the NFL season picks up, just for logistic reasons. But right now it is every single day, getting that out there. Seems to be going over very well in the podcast format. So you can check all that out. There's some free guides down below as well. You can follow me on Twitter at SalvageDFS to ask me any questions about the course, anything you might want, or just look up or for my tweets on just DFS related stuff and content. So huge slate. Right now I've got 7 guys listed as interest, but I'm going to be honest with you, this slate has to be dug into really deep. So the podcast is going to be valuable today for me and also for everybody watching this. So when I say a huge slate, we have, 8 guys at $10,000 or above. You know something's going to be going on in this slate in terms of having to take some strong stands. So starting it off, look, I know Verlander's on the slate. He's not going to be an early interest for me. It's nothing against Verlander. I mean, Oakland does strike out way more against righties than they do lefties by 5.1%. They're also a decent power hitting team. I can't say anything bad about Verlander. I mean, there's clear things. He doesn't get a ton of ground balls, but that's a big reason because he strikes out 34.3% of guys, the highest on the slate. Gives up power to really both sides of this plate. The righties is worrisome because Oakland does have some power righties in this lineup, 1.6 home runs per 9. But look, he's the best pitcher on the slate in terms of pure talent, in my opinion, and that's saying something when there's all these other Morton, Giolito, Castillo, Corbin, right? Minor having a great year, Syndergaard. So 3.12 Sierra indicates that for me. The strikeout rate of 34.3%, highest on the slate, 37.8% against lefties. Just been dominant this year. He probably should be an interest, but again, I can't label every single top-end pitcher today as an interest. The matchup is very much so neutral. Oakland strikes out around average, but they have above average power. So I'm not going to get there, and the big reason why is my first interest is Charlie Morton versus Detroit. Look, it's going to be Chalk City. He's a 320 favorite, 3.54 Sierra, second best Sierra, only to Justin Verlander, 30.4% strikeout rate, 32.9% against lefties, which I'll probably see about 2 to 3 in this Detroit lineup, most likely 2. Detroit against righties, a 153 ISO since the start of June. That's 4th worst on the slate. They have a 25.8% strikeout rate. That 25.8% strikeout rate is top 5 on the slate. So overall, Detroit, terrible. The ISO that you're seeing of a 153 is probably inflated due to the fact that they've had a few recent injuries, but also Nick Castellanos being the big one, the best hitter in the lineup, leaving. So it's just pretty obvious. Morton's a guy who worries some in terms of how deep he goes into the games, not the guy who gets you into the 7th inning all that often. 6th inning, sure, lots of efficiency in terms of how he works batters for strikeouts, and then the .72 home runs per 9, which pretty much leads this slate if you factor out all small sample pitchers on the slate. And really it's second, actually. I'm seeing Mike Soroka is just a monster, .49 home runs per 9 in terms of limiting damage. But yeah, he's going to be my number one interest. $11,600 is expensive, though, especially because we have a ton of more pitching options on the slate. Giolito versus the Angels, not too much interest. Castillo, slight interest, but not going to list him right now. We'll see if I break down into it more on the podcast. Just a guy who's been fantastic, Castillo. But again, his biggest concern is the walks, but 55.1% ground ball rate, highest on the slate, 27.7% fly ball rate, the top 3 in terms of how low it is. And he does strike guys out, gives up no power, facing St. Louis today, who is, if anything, around an average team on the season. He's in a great spot as well, Castillo. Not technically listed as an interest, but I'm going to do it right now. It's just this slate is all over the place. You can go so many different ways. Don't try and fixate on one guy today. I'm personally not. No matter how good of the spot Charlie Morton is in, there's just other great pitchers in great spots. We saw Castillo, Verlander's in an average spot for a fantastic pitcher. Noah Syndergaard is going to be my 3rd interest now. He would be my 2nd, but I do have interest in Castillo the more I look at the matchup. He's facing Kansas City. Kansas City has a 138 ISO versus righties on the season. That is the second worst, only behind the Chicago White Sox. They're even worse than Miami actually right now against righties since the start of June. They don't strike out that much. It's kind of a known thing that Kansas City is a little bit stingier with the bats, but they just don't have power in their lineup. There's just no upside bats. Mondesi's out, but even when he's in, he's definitely a talented bat with some power, but he's not a 30 home run guy, right? Or at least at this point in the season, he's not a guy who Hunter Renfroe or Pete Alonso, when they're out of the lineup, you really feel that blow in the power department. So just not a lot of pop in that lineup. And you have Noah Syndergaard, who gives up 28.3% hard hit percentage. That's the best on the slate. A 49.2% ground ball rate is approaching elite numbers at that 50% range. And he does strike out 26.9% of righties. He probably gets two lefties in this lineup. Alex Gordon and Ryan O'Hearn continue to be the only lefties, I believe, in this Royals lineup. O'Hearn, no real threat in terms of has some pop, but nothing crazy. Alex Gordon, clearly a respectable hitter. But yeah, if he's striking out that much, he has a 7% higher strikeout rate against righties and lefties. That's going to be favorable. $10,100 for him, though, is probably a fair price point in this matchup. So he's my third interest. Morton, Castillo, and Syndergaard out of these 8 top 10, or out of these 8 guys who are $10,000 or above. That's probably where I would get the most right now. But again, it's 12 hours to lock, and there's a ton of guys on the slate to go through. Fourth interest is actually going to be Jon Gray. Jon Gray's pitching in his home ballpark today, which is Coors Field, and obviously everybody knows. Even Miami has a 5.1 implied run total today. And that actually does scare me a little bit, that they do have that high of a total, but it's clearly indicated in the fact that they're playing in Coors Field. And Jon Gray does match up well for his home ballpark in terms of what he's good at. So he's $8,000 flat today. I think it's a decent price point on him. And there's a couple things I like here. So he only gives up 1.2 home runs per 9 when half of his starts are in Coors Field. That's pretty good. Big reason why, 50% ground ball rate in that elite category. Top 3 on this slate, or top 4 on this slate, and then you also have the 25% fly ball rate. That 24% or 25% fly ball rate is also top 4 on the slate. Those are 2 elite numbers. Anytime you're below 30% fly balls, that's great. He's at 25%. So he's a guy who's just not giving up fly balls. He does give up hard hit contact, but a lot of that is ground balls, so I can deal with that. Doesn't strike out lefties all that much at 22%. Strikes out righties much more at 24.9%, pretty much 25%. And he does get a matchup today against Miami, who will strike out 25% of the time versus righties, and they only have a 139 ISO. We just had pretty much a virtual tie for second worst on the slate, with the Royals only behind the White Sox. So, look, I don't have to tell you Miami's bad. In Coors Field, they're clearly going to be better because any fly balls they hit are going to have more sail behind them. Any line drives they hit are going to just find the gaps more, and Colorado was just built to be a gaps alley for doubles and triples and whatever else might be. The 5.1 implied run total usually would lead me to say, wow, Miami is going to be an actual decent play today, especially because most of their guys won't be that priced up, most likely. The top-end guys most likely will, but most of them won't on that other end of it. 5.1 implied run total is good, but you also have Jon Gray, who's in a good strikeout matchup as a good strikeout pitcher. Not great, but good, and he does exactly what you want. Get ground balls in Coors Field. Don't give up fly balls. So I have no problems getting to a Jon Gray today. Again, the total for Vegas does concern me a little bit, but you're going to see on this slate that if you're trying to find good pitchers, most of them are going to be $10,000 or above. So trying to find them in the mid-range is going to be challenging. Patrick Sandoval, 7,800. He's going to be my fifth interest because he's facing the White Sox. This guy's a small sample, and he walks so many guys, 14% so far. He had a walk problem in the minors. That's worrisome. Does give up hard hit percentage. But again, so far we've seen 50% ground balls, 25% fly ball rate, very similar to Jon Gray on the year. He strike out 35.5% of righties. That's fantastic. And now you get, he's a lefty against the White Sox, who I would have much more confidence in him if he was a righty. The White Sox are much better against lefties. They're a league average ISO power team against lefties. They strike out around average. So they're an average team against lefties. Like, let's get this clear. They're dead awful, worse in the league in terms of how much power they have against righties. 26.4% strikeout rate. Again, righties is second worst in the league. But again, he's a lefty, so this becomes a lot better of a team. At 7,800, he's probably priced up, but he does have the strikeout stuff against righties. He has yet to give up that much power, 0.93 home runs per 9. Again, a smaller sample, but I'm not concerned about it. The fact that he does give up hard hit percentage, around 45%, is worrisome, but he's not allowing teams to elevate the ball. So where are you really going to go with that? And also he's facing the White Sox, who, even though they're much worse against righties, they still are only around league average. They're not an above power hitting team. So 7,800, I would like this to be like 7,300, and I have a ton of more interest, but he has to be interesting. But just keep in mind, this matchup is not the dead last in the league White Sox, second to last in strikeouts, dead last in power against righties since June 1st. This is an average team, middle of the pack, right there in terms of power and strikeouts against lefties. So I really give him the edge because of the fact that early on he's shown us a propensity to strike out a ton of batters. Now his problem will be how deep he can get into the games. When you're walking 14% of your batters in this small sample, but you're striking out 35.5% of them, you're righties at least, and overall that comes down to 21.9 because he hasn't just faced a ton of lefties yet. It's going to be deep to kind of work deep into the counts when a lot of your outs or plate appearances will be at least 4 pitches for a walk on average, probably 5.5 to 6. I know 5.5 you can't throw, but just average numbers. And then strikeouts, it's going to be on average, 4.5 to 5, 5 to 6. So it's a lot of pitches per batter. So fifth interest for obvious reasons of the matchup and the strikeout upside, but there is concern for the price point due to how deep he can get into this game. Sixth interest will be Jacob Wozupak, which not a lot here, not a ton of conviction here. Seattle's around middle of the pack to low in terms of their run total today, and they just strike out a ton. He's a guy who doesn't have that much strikeout upside, but they strike out a ton. He's a guy who overall the 4.93 Sierra is scary, but we're getting to this below $7,000 range. I want a guy who has the upside to at least get me 5 or 6 strikeouts to make up for the home run or the 3 runs that he gives up. I think we have better options below this. If out of these 8 guys now that I added Castillo, Waguespack is probably the guy who's going to be dead last on my list. But I'm going to put him on here because 7,000 or below is going to be a very unique play today, or a very unique spot in terms of you're going to have to get here if you want to play any of the stars in great spots like Syndergaard, like Morton, probably like Castillo, even John Gray. So he's going to be the first guy that I turn to. I'm not getting to Wade LeBlanc. I think Adrian Hauser is in a interesting situation, but Washington just has too much of a high implied run total for a game in Washington where the ball sails out. 6,600, maybe on the podcast later when I break down into him, I'll be getting there more because he does have great strikeout stuff, 25.6. He does have great ground ball stuff, 54.5, 24.9. Fly ball is second best on the slate. His ground ball stuff is second best on the slate. He gives up no home runs. He has a good Sierra. You know what? We're doing it right here live. We're taking off Jacob Wozupak. Again, the more I break down into this and talk out loud, it helps me. And we're putting Adrian Hauser as our first interest in the 7,000 or below range. It just makes too much sense. Like, Seattle might have what? Let's go over to Fantasy Labs quickly. Seattle has a 4.6 implied run total to Washington's 5. So I'm not letting that run total outweigh too much of the fact that Adrian Hauser is a much better strikeout pitcher than Waguespack. He's a much better ground ball pitcher by far, fly ball pitcher by far. Sierra is over a 1.00 better over that. So yeah, Adrian Hauser will be the spot that we start. Again, Washington's 5 implied run total is scary, and also just the matchup in Washington. They're much, and this is the main reason why I went to Waguespack. You have Seattle, who strikes out against righties 26.3% of the time, the second highest on the slate, compared to Washington against righties, who's going to strike out 19.3%, third lowest on the slate. So the matchup stalls you a little bit, but I do like the fact that even if he can't pick up his normal 6 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts even in this game, and he only gets you 4, at least he has that 54.5% ground ball rate and low fly ball rate to kind of limit any damage, so it kind of makes up for it. He can go deep into the games, less overall damage. So he's my first interest below 7,000. And as of right now, the other 2 will hit on them 1 and 2. Mike Leake at 6,000. I hate Mike Leake. I never play this guy. Sometimes we've seen him price up to like 8,000 or 9,000. He's finally to where he should be at 6,000. 4.64. He only walks 3.5% of batters. That's good. He's actually a decent ground ball pitcher. 47.2% is in the top half on this slate. 32.8% fly ball rate. It's approaching that 30% number that we like. But he doesn't strike anybody out. 16.5%. He gives up too much home runs at 1.89 home runs per 9. But he's getting San Fran today. Now they're playing in Arizona, not in San Fran, so that's a little bit worrisome. But he gets San Fran, an average power hitting team overall, a team that strikes out more against righties than lefties, or right around the same actually when I break down into it a little bit closer since June. 22.9% on the year, slightly below average. But I'm not looking for high strikeout upside. If I get it down here, that's great. Like, right, we have Adrian Hauser, who has the strikeout upside in his at least talent, maybe not the matchup. But Mike Leake is just, what you're going to get down here is a bad pitcher who can limit the damage in terms of getting you ground balls instead of fly balls. And he has an average opponent. So $6,000, again, you're looking for 12 to 15 fantasy points. Maybe he backs his way into a win. He is a favorite today. So if he lands 15 fantasy points at 6,000, I think you take that all day on this slate, because then you can pair him with any of these top-end pitchers you want. And at most, even if you pair him with Verlander, you're only spending $18,400. I say only lightly, but again, you're still playing a $12,000 pitcher there, so it's decent. Last interest on the slate. How many interests are we at now? Because I added Castillo and I switched Waguespack to Hauser. I believe it's still 8. We're at Morton, Castillo, Syndergaard, John Gray, Sandoval, Adrian Hauser. And Sandoval right now, since we took Waguespack off, whatever his name is, he's my last interest, Sandoval. And then we have Mike Leake. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my last one is Aaron Siviol, 5,800, right below Leake. He's actually been playing pretty well, but he gets the Yankees. This is a brutal matchup. The Yankees, their implied run total has to be out, right? 5.9. You get this game in Coors Field. You have the Red Sox. Oh my God, 7.3. They're going to absolutely annihilate. But 5.9 right now for the Yankees is a scary total for sure. But Sevilla's been good at really one thing. Hasn't given up a home run yet. 3.89 SIERA is really good. The hard hit percentage compared to the fly balls means home runs are coming, right? 43.2% fly ball rate, 43.2%, same exact hard hit rate, right? So home runs are coming. They'll probably start coming today against the Yankees team that, against righties since the start of June, has a 224 ISO. That's the second best on this slate. They only strike out 22.5% of the time. Sevilla strikes out lefties. That's great, 36.7. That's an elite number. They'll probably only face Didi Gregorius from the left side of the plate today, so that's not that great. Only strikes out 19.4% of righties, so this 28.1% K rate that you're going to look at and go, oh, but he strikes out so many guys, Sal, I want to get to him at 5,800. It's skewed. He strikes them all out against lefties. He'll only face one lefty and Didi in this lineup, more than likely. The big thing is he doesn't give up power. I think that's due to regress. There's a great chance it regresses today. 5.9 implied run total for the Yankees. Look, I'm saying all these bad things because I'm telling you, he's in a very scary spot, and he probably becomes popular because of his strikeout rate. I think at 5,800, he's worth the risk because he hasn't been giving up any damage yet. And I don't expect 5 or 6 home runs out of nowhere today. Like 1 or 2 is very much on the table. He has a good SIERA, which means he hasn't been getting lucky. But the worrisome part is that his strikeout upside that he has is not going to be relevant today against this right-handed power Yankees team. And the regression that I think he's due for in the home run department is very likely to start today. So with all that said, if he garners ownership, I much prefer Mike Leake. I much prefer Adrian Hauser into the below $7,000 range. If he doesn't garner ownership, then just get as much of him as you get the other guys. Maybe take a stand on one of them with a little bit more ownership. If you're playing 10 lineups, maybe you get one of them with 5 lineups, and then you split up the other ones with 3 and 2. But if Aaron Sevilla garners a lot of ownership today due to the price point and just his stuff so far, if I was playing 10 lineups, I would probably have 1 if he's going to be chalky. I'd underweight the field or just not play any, because there's a lot of things here that don't add up in terms of what he's good at and what the Yankees are good at, and it really is downsides for him and upsides for them. So that being said, these are the 8 pitchers. Again, we'll kind of limit them later today on the podcast and or article. It'll probably be a podcast. So 8 interests, that's a lot more than we usually have, but we have a stacked 15-game Friday slate. I'll get into the hitting on that podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at SalVecchiDFS. Check out the NFL Daily course. It's linked down below. I pretty much just stop hitting that deposit button and start making profits in DFS. Everything I know about NFL DFS is in there. Patreon's linked down below. Free guides. Again, hit the subscribe button if you can. Helps me grow, helps this channel, and I appreciate you joining the community. So thank you so much. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.